Welcome to Nashville Mountain Bike Podcast, powered by SORBA Mid-TN, where we talk about advocacy, trails, and anything and everything mountain bike. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the show. All right, welcome back, guys. Shawn, what have you been up to the last couple of weeks, man?
It feels like cutting down trees.
Cutting down trees. It's been crazy.
I took a week off to go to the beach.
That's right. That's right. I just got back from Bentonville myself, so
I'd rather been where you were at. I mean, the beach is nice, but not ideal biking.
No
conditions.
trails.
No trails.
No trails. So we had a tornado this weekend, didn't we?
Yeah. It was close to Barfield.
Pretty close to Barfield, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, everybody, welcome back to the Nashville Mountain Bike Podcast, powered by SORBA Mid-TN. I've got, of course, my co-host today with me, Shawn Hill, our Mr. VP of SORBA. I've got Drew Bonham as well, and Drew Sanford. And these are the OGs that were responsible for some of the work down at Barfield. And when we started talking about doing these podcasts and whatnot, this was one of the ideas that we had was talking about trails, the genesis of them, how they came to be, kind of starting from the political side of it, moving into the trail building side, and just learning more about the techniques that were involved. So we thought it'd be super cool to get some people in here to talk about Barfield. Barfield, if you have said paddle it because we were talking about kayaking earlier. If you have biked it, in my opinion, it is one of the most pound for pound, best, most difficult trails in Middle Tennessee. Shawn, would you agree with me?
I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know if that was the point of doing Barfield, but we'll learn about why it's like that and whatnot. So, I don't know, Drew, do you want to kick us off and start talking about, let's take it way back to the history of mountain biking in Murfreesboro.
Way back. So back in, it was probably January or February of 2017. Jason, I'm struggling with the last name. He's the president of SORBA back then.
Right.
Jason
Barrett?
No, not Barrett.
Bryant?
No.
There's a lot of Jasons.
Yeah, this was kind of when like SORBA resurrected itself, and he was the guy who got elected president because he was very, very energetic. He had a lot of energy and a lot of vision, and there were a lot of people who were brought into Jason Campbell. There were a lot of people who were brought into my bad. I will do this with names the entire time because that's the way my brain works. I can remember obscure stuff, but not people's names. Jason approached me and said, "Hey, we've got some plans for a trail in Barfield Crescent Park in Murfreesboro. We'd love to see some flagging based on the drawings that we've got." And so I came down here and spent 2 weekends flagging. I believe it was basically what I will continuously call these trails beginner 1 and 2, intermediate 1 and 2, and advanced 1 and 2, because that's all that I ever called them. That's all they were when we were building them. And so I believe I flagged beginner 1 and 2 and intermediate 1 and 2, and I don't think I made it to the advanced sections, although I did kind of scope them out. I realized I didn't have time to actually go through and flag them, but I did go look at everything.
So what was your initial reaction when you walked the property?
My initial reaction was, I'm one of those guys. A little bit of background. I started mountain biking in 1986, and I started mountain biking in Central Virginia.
Okay.
So for those who are familiar with Stokesville, shout out to Chris Scott. It's like, I mean, it's Pisgah, only without the crowds that are in Pisgah. It's the same mountains. It's the same experience. It's the same gnarliness. And we were doing it on 50-pound bikes with 2-inch tires and no suspension and, all of that good stuff. And I saw this and I went, this is the technical trail that Middle Tennessee needs, because I see people, I go to Lock 4, which is not technical in any way, shape, or form. And I see like lines around roots in the trail. And these lines, you go out there, and the guys that built Lock 4 did a fantastic job with like the radiuses of the turns, really carry speed through them. And these lines around the roots start to mess with the approach to the turns and the radius and everything. And it's messing with perfection, but they're riding around the roots. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you rollerblading or are you mountain biking? Like, this is the trail that Middle Tennessee needs to break them of riding around the roots. They ride this, they won't care.
So you knew it was going to be technical right off the bat.
Oh, there
obviously.
was no, I mean, all you have to do is look around out there and it occurs to you like maybe there's an easier way around this feature, but you look to the right and to the left and it's like, no, everything is worse than this.
Yeah, even an easier way. I don't think there's a way to build. I mean, there's not a way to build a hiking trail, much less a mountain biking trail that doesn't have technical all over it in Barfield.
Yeah. So did you get a look at it before the trails were flagged?
I did not. I actually, I'm an airline pilot by trade and had a broken hand from mountain biking, an accident.
Can I take this for a second?
Go for it, Drew.
One of the things as trail builders that we deal with is people that are, there are inevitably, there are people that are very happy that we're building trails somewhere. There are people that are upset about it. And this had gone through the process. I mean, obviously it had gone through approval and everything else when we got out there to build. But we were still encountering people who were upset. And these people, they have a constitutional right to express their opinion. Some of them do it politely, some of them don't. And we had just recently had an experience with someone who did not do it politely. And she gave poor Zach an earful. So we're out there one day doing some work, hammering on some rocks as you do at Barfield, and making some noise. And we hear this, we're not too far from a hiking trail. We hear this, someone yelling, "Hey, you guys building mountain bike trails?" And I look over at Zach, and the body language that Zach was giving off was like, "Oh no, not again!"
This is exactly how it happened.
And so I shout back and I go, "Yep." And there's this crashing through the woods, just like this one-armed Sasquatch coming through the woods with one hand and a cast. And he goes, "Awesome! Can I help?" And so I'm looking at this guy with his arm in a cast who wants to help us build like the most technical hand-built. Enter Drew Bonham, who I didn't know at the time. Go ahead, take it.
When you realize, and I had no idea, this was honestly the first trail that I had been heavily involved in building once I got started. Had no real, like, I've moved dirt before and packed in banks or berms but no breaking rock, no fill, no anything technical. Think building Lock 4 is all I'd ever done before. And even at that, mostly hiking trails, not biking. So, I come in one-handed and I'm like, "Look, I'll pick up a sledgehammer. Just tell me what you need." And he's sitting there like, "You're joking, right?" But it turned out, I mean, it's turned into a great friendship, but it was also a great experience helping build the trail as well.
Awesome.
So this guy spent weeks left-handed.
Probably about 2 months.
Left-handed. Yeah. I mean, literally, I would say, like, we've got this big hole here. We need to break some gravel into it, which, if you've ridden Barfield, you've seen the places where there's, like gravel and just holes in the rock that constitutes the trail out there. And all of that was larger rocks that we picked up and moved and then took a hammer to it and broke it into gravel to get it to crunch and like sit down in there.
So you didn't bring any gravel in. You made your own gravel.
All of the material out there is from the site. And this guy spent, one hand with a 3-pound hand sledge just breaking rock.
And sometimes with a 30-pound sledge. But
well, a 10 pound. Yeah, I mean, I bet it felt like 30 pounds with one hand.
That's crazy. You could have gone to Lowe's and bought some gravel bag and carried it up there.
But think about how far you'd have to carry it into the woods.
I know.
So that was one of the things that was interesting.
So what were the rules back then about access to this trail? Could you have machinery out there? Could you not have machinery?
Well, I think we were given leeway to approach the build any way we wanted to. I'd flagged the trail. The the package came up for bid. Barry had asked me if I knew anything about it. Barry Smith, who Barry Smith Trails, who's done so much great work in Middle Tennessee. The fact that I've done a lot of it with him, notwithstanding, I elected to start working with him because I thought he was probably one of the best trail builders east of the Mississippi. But he bid on this sight unseen based on me saying, no, this is going to be a great technical trail. And
Are you guys still friends today?
oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually taking the day off from a job. I'm working with him down in Leapers Fork right now.
Okay, so he doesn't hate you for giving him the
No,
the
actually,
data. Okay.
he loves this trail, but he walked in and he looked at the property and he went, I've only ever done machine builds. He said, I don't think, I'm not even sure we can get a machine in here, never mind do anything constructive with it. He said, this is going to be an old school hand build. And I said, well, I know exactly how to do that because I grew up doing it. He said, okay, take it and run. And so I think this was kind of the start of him saying, well, this guy's got project management skills. I can turn him loose on a project and he can run with it. Because that's what he did, is he turned me loose with it. And he sent me some load straps and some rock bars and a grip hoist and some come-alongs and some hammers, and we moved some rocks. I've got a picture of a rock that this guy's laying down on, and he's got his arm stretched out above his head. He's laying on this rock, and he can't touch either end of it, and it's 4 feet wide or whatever, and we're moving this rock, and we had 2 come-alongs and a grip hoist on that thing, and we broke a dead tree off at the ground trying to pull
This is
this
the one
thing.
you sent me pictures of.
This is the one that's now the ramp. If you're familiar with the advanced section, it's the ramp down into that huge chasm you ride down into and then ride back up out of. It's the ramp down into it.
It's
Put
probably
that in perspective. It's 4 foot wide, 9 foot long, and probably 6 inches thick. And I don't know how much that weighs, but it's a solid block of limestone.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 foot by 1 foot rock is 120 pounds, I think, is the calculation. So it's got to be over
It's like a ton. I mean,
So-
it's got to
3,000
be.
or 4,000 pounds.
Even if we'd had a machine, it wouldn't have done any good to move that. Not the little. We use like a 1.7 ton mini X, and it wouldn't do any good.
And
to
how
move
far
that.
did you move it? Were you like, oh, here's this big old
20 feet.
flat rock over here.
Yeah,
We got to move it.
it was.
The trick wasn't moving it the 20 feet we had to move it to get there. The trick was getting it off the top of that shelf so that it laid down as a ramp without dropping it down in there or breaking it.
Like
That was
teeter.
the, yeah. That was the trick.
It's a combination of brute force and finesse
Yeah.
on it.
And how long did that take? I mean, that was not an afternoon job, right?
No, that was we literally did that in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Oh,
From
really?
I mean,
start to
listen,
finish
we
to
did
set
it.
Yeah.
We did it fast enough. It was hard work, which is why I laid on the rock afterwards. But we did it quick enough to where there was time to lay on the rock and take pictures afterwards. It's an efficient job, but it was fun.
And that's not the only big rock that you guys moved out there.
No. This job really consisted of a lot of trust with the people that you're working with, because when we would look around, there are places you don't realize even that we moved as much rock as we did, because there are places where we moved 5 or 6 very large rocks, something bigger than the size of the table in front of us, and stacked them to make a stepped kind of ramp down off of a very large shelf.
Example of that, entrance to, I believe, Advanced 1, as soon as you come off the connector towards the back.
Yes.
There is about 100 feet long, and it steps up probably 10, 12 feet, and it's 3 feet wide, and it's a ramp, and it was completely built because there was a ledge, and we want the trail up there. We're down here in mud. How do we make that happen? And it was bringing in rocks and crush and boulders and then filling it with crush in a way. And two, you got to think of as it wears in and, it rains on it, freeze thaw cycles, how to keep that from eroding out. Because you got to think about durability of the trail and making this stand up to the abuse it's going to take.
Yeah, so we would take a rock bar, find a rock that we thought we could move. You stick the rock bar under it and see if you can prop it up and usually 2 or 3 people with a rock bar to actually get the rock up in the air high enough to where you could get, a load strap, something you'd suspend a load off of underneath of it. Then you'd chain that together with a logging chain. Then you'd hook to that with a come along or grip hoist, which is basically, it's a come along with like a continuous, like 50-foot continuous cable. So it's not on a winch. You can literally, pull this thing and work it both directions. You can pull it either way. And then drag that rock and, pry it into place with the rock bars and come alongs and everything else. So there are places out there that it took 2 days to drag enough rocks into to actually make it rideable. Yeah. And because you pass over it in seconds, you don't realize it.
Yeah, I mean, anybody go out and do trail work for a day. It takes a long time to cover a mile just on a dirt path, let alone one that's hand-built with hardscape, which is incredible. How do you guys make gravel out of rocks? You just
hit them long enough, hard enough with a hammer that they'll break.
No chisels.
Yeah. If they're big enough, some of them will use the 3-pound sledges with a point on the backside of. If they're big enough, especially if it's something you're trying to shape into a step or something, we'll drill with a hammer drill holes, and then what breaks off of that's usually 4-inch by 5-inch, 4-inch by 4-inch blocks, and just smashing it with the sledge. It eventually gives.
Awesome.
I'm thinking, you're like, hey, did you guys use a mini X on that trail? No, we used a hammer drill.
Yeah,
Like,
crazy.
Literally.
I love the phrase you said, brute force and finesse. They think that encapsulates the concept of the effort required there.
Yeah, I personally, well, I just told you I got back from Bentonville all week, and there's a ton of hardscape work out there. But there was one trail specifically that we got to, and just the appreciation that you have for people that can move rocks in a way to make it look natural, but still have an incredible course it's all inspiring. And honestly, again, I'll go back to what I said, pound for pound, Barfield has the most out of any trail in Tennessee.
I'll give this Drew a hand on this too. And I think you see this in a lot of different professions and a lot of different art forms, but when you've got somebody that has a true passion for it, and they, and they strive for, like, I can't wait to ride this when it's done, in the case of trail building, you get something that's extra special. And it's not just for the people that built it, it's for everybody getting to experience that. And you get that in Drew, you get that with Barry, you get that with Zach, and a lot of the guys that trail build around here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So when you're ideating around these trails and whatnot and some of the features, did you build them that you knew that it was going to be hard to ride? Or were you like, I can make this? And can you clear the whole trail today?
Oh, no, there's no way. I mean, first of all, I injured myself a while back, and it's been a long road to recovery. I'm really just now getting back on the bike well. At the point that we built this trail, I will say I test rode beginner 1, 2, and intermediate 1 and 2 on a single speed. Just because I didn't
You're a
want
masochist, yeah.
I didn't want to hear any lip out of anybody. And
Qualifying round.
so then, but no, when I build, gosh, and I should say this, I mean, like, I really don't consider myself like an advanced rider. I consider myself like a very high level intermediate rider. And the only reason I say very high level intermediate is because obviously, I've been riding for almost 40 years now. That's a lot of experience. So I can generally look at something and go, not today, or no, I got this. There's very little in between for me. And when I build something like Barfield, when I build the intermediate, what I'm thinking to myself is, most of this I should be able to ride. Not necessarily easily, but I should be able to ride. And then 1 or 2 things that I want to be like, no, like it might take me, I might need to session this a little bit on any given day. And then when you get into the advanced stuff, I can honestly say I've cleaned everything out there, but I've never made like one clean lap.
Same.
So it's, it's sessioning. And honestly, my feeling about a trail like Barfield is my goal building it is, I know guys who could probably go out there after 5 or 10 laps on different days and go out there on a day when they're feeling particularly spry, and they could probably clean it without a tremendous amount of trouble. But those guys are the exceptional riders who, they're athletically gifted. They've been doing this for as long as I have, and they're those people that you see them riding and it literally makes you nauseous. They're like, oh, I hate you. You're so good at this.
There's levels to the game, right?
Right.
There's always somebody better.
Right. Now, really the hardest part of the trail for me when you're talking about how did you gauge this was looking at the what we call the beginner trail, which obviously it's not a beginner trail necessarily. But it's the easiest we can make it. I was looking at the terrain for that in places going, I have to find a way to make this easy. And that involved, there were rocks the size of this table in some places. Bonham was talking about the wedges and feathers and the hammer drill earlier, where I would literally drill around the rock and take the cap off to ramp up on another rock, and then drill down in what was left of the rock and break that up into gravel to brace that ramp up and level that rock down to the ground, and literally like disappearing a rock that we couldn't move by just taking it apart. And there are parts of the beginner trails or the easy trails out there that's how we made a path through some of that, was literally disappearing rocks that were, what is this table, 3 by 3 by 18 inches off the ground or something. This size or larger.
Yeah, that's wild. I remember the first time I rode it, I kind of got mad at the city of Murfreesboro because I didn't know any history of Barfield. And I was like, why in the world would the city of Murfreesboro commission a beginner mountain bike trail and it be so difficult? I was like, who's going to come out here and ride this thing? But then I started to learn more about it. And to your point, you did what you could. You did the absolute best that you could. And the city of Murfreesboro basically gave this property and said, go for it. And this is what you get, and you don't get anything else, and you don't get upset, and you make this mountain bike course. And it wasn't until the second or third time that I went back out there that I was like, okay, I get it. And I was also coming from a cross-country perspective. I ride mountain bikes to get miles in. And you cannot go to Barfield with the perspective of getting miles in because you're just not going to get them.
Nope.
You have to go out there and understand that 1 hour, 2 hours in, you're only going to have 5 or 6 miles, and those are going to be hard-fought miles, and you're going to be done. And you're going to come back to the trailhead and expect a parade because you just completed one of the most gnarliest things in Tennessee, which is the truth.
Barfield is the place for heart rate.
Yeah.
If you can get on that trail, on the beginner trail, and within a tenth of a mile, your heart rate's 150, 160, 170, and it'll stay there.
Well, prime example of that is the step up. Is it intermediate 2 that crosses and immediately starts uphill on that long step up? Or is it intermediate 1? Do you remember?
I believe it's intermediate 2, where you're coming off of the connector trail into
Yes.
intermediate 2.
Yeah.
Drago.
And it's immediately, it's intermediate 2 where you start working uphill and right at the start.
Yeah.
And I remember, I had a broken hand when this started. I hadn't been on a bike for, by the time I was riding again, probably 9 or 10 weeks. And when we finally got back out there and I was able to, I've got a Yeti SB5C. And when I finally tried to get up that, it took me 3 attempts just because it's so punchy and it gives you just enough to get enough momentum up to make the next step up. Yeah. And I'm like you, cross-country miles. I like fast and flowy. If it's technical, it's downhill and I'm fast enough and the bike does the work and it doesn't really matter. It's just confidence to do it. This is, it's work. And like you said, it doesn't take but 10 seconds to get your heart rate up. And that's a prime example right there of a move. There's probably 5 different moves you have to make with little bitty spots between each move to get the momentum to make the next one happen. And if you miss one, you start over or walk the bike up.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the trail. And, we're thankful to the city, obviously for the land and the ability to do it. But I think it's a gift, and yes, there were many riders that were, like, is this, what did you? I thought you were building the mountain bike trail, and it's just different, but in a really good way, because there is no place that I know of in Middle Tennessee where you can go and get that kind of workout, not just physically, but with technical ability, without going out west or into the mountains in North Carolina or West Virginia to get that.
Yeah, that's true. No, I can't think of a place in Tennessee. And recently we had our executive director of SORBA was in town, and he wanted to go for a ride. So I rallied the troops, and I was like, what perfect place to take him than to go take him to Barfield. And because it's an experience so unique that I know he hasn't experienced anywhere else. And he's got 50 chapters that he's ridden in.
He rides all over the world.
Across the Southeast, and rides all over the world. And it blew him away. Absolutely blew him away.
That's a testament to this guy over here.
Well, that's I love hearing that. I knew when I built it, there were going to be plenty of people who had plenty of unflattering things to say about me, and that's actually, it's almost kind of a goal of mine when I build a trail. There's almost a point where I want everybody to have a moment where they go, you know what, I hate this guy. Whoever did this, I hate him.
I helped build it, and I curse you by name at times when I'm out there riding.
So but I knew that just based on, having ridden everything that was on offer in Middle Tennessee at that time, I mean, you got to think when we built that, I think the 2 most technical pieces of trail in Middle Tennessee at that point in time would have been probably Hamilton Creek and some of the option lines on Phase 4 at Cane Ridge, probably. Yeah. And I said, the people who come out here, like I hear people all the time, it was on, the old Nashville Mountain Bike Forum, and then on Facebook, we went to, North Carolina, we went to Pisgah or whatever, and it was great fun, but man, I'm just not in shape for this technical stuff. It beat me up so bad. And I said, well, this is going to be the place that, the people who want to come out here and ride, the people who stick this out and figure this trail out, they're going to go to North Carolina and they're going to go, oh man, I loved all this technical stuff. It wasn't so bad. I looked at some of it and I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Because it's there now. We've got some of that now.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing different between Barfield and North Carolina is gradient, right?
Right.
I mean, it's still just
we just don't have the elevation.
Yeah, for sure. I say gradient because I'm thinking paddling again, but elevation for bikers, right?
One thing you mentioned was Cane Ridge Phase 4. That is a section of trail that a lot of people in the Nashville area have ridden. And to me, that's kind of one of the easiest ways to explain Barfield is if you have ridden Phase 4 at Cane Ridge, you need to be able to clear.
Do you know what Phase 4 at Cane Ridge and Barfield have in common?
What's that?
I built both of them.
But I tell people though that's kind of like that's kind of like a relative comparison.
And it's a good comparison. When I know we're on Barfield, but when Cane Ridge, when Phase 4 was being built, it was there's a lot of history there. But I was asked if I would come out and build that, and so Austin Bischoff and I were basically the two people primarily responsible for that. And I asked him, I said, there's a lot of opportunity out here for much more technical stuff than we have on a lot of Middle Tennessee trails. Can I utilize a bunch of this, make options, just flat out make this the route for some of it? Can we make this a more technical trail than the rest of it? He said, yeah, let's go. So that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as progression, Cane Ridge is awesome. Phase 1,
it really is.
Introductory, and Phase 2 it adds a little bit more. Phase 3 adds a little bit more, and Phase 4 will make you work for it, which is perfect when you think about that. Did you have artistic expression there too, to do as you pleased?
Largely, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So you guys are talking. You're using different names than what I'm used to at Barfield. You're using the builders' names of Phase 1 or whatever, and I use the trail names that they're actually are today. Did you guys have any input on the existing names that are used today?
No, I thought it was hilarious when I realized what was going on, that they had taken character names from the Rocky movies and named the loops after, and I can't keep up if you start using those, because literally the way that we address those is we were given 6 different loops. 2 of them were beginner loops, 2 of them were intermediate loops, 2 of them were advanced loops. And so if you're standing in the parking lot, the loops on the right are the 1 loops, and the loops on the left are the 2 loops. So you got beginner 1 and 2, intermediate 1 and 2, and advanced 1 and 2.
See.
And I understand the naming scheme, but I can't keep straight what's what.
So who's responsible for the naming convention? Was that Ryan Maloney?
Yeah, the naming was Ryan Maloney. And
You talked to him about it. What did he have to say?
oh, it's great. So when you start out from the parking lot, the very first trail that you're on, that's Mickey. That's the beginner trail. That's where you start. That's where you learn. That's where you receive your training.
Not Disney Mickey.
Not Disney Mickey, who was Rocky's trainer.
Save some of that for the sequel.
Rocky Balboa, right?
Yep. So Mickey's your trainer, and then from there you go on to Paulie, who in the Rocky movies was brother-in-law, who also kind of influenced him and trained him, and helped him improve. Should I continue on to the rest of it?
Go through them.
So the green trails, the beginner trails, that's your support team. That's who's training you. And then from there you have Yo Adrian. And oddly enough, it connects and then it goes up. And it connects you to the intermediate trails. And Yo Adrian, girlfriend, who obviously cheering him on, telling him to keep going and go to your opponents. So we'll do intermediate 1, which is Thunderlips, which was one of another opponent in the Rocky movies. And then after that, you have Apollo at intermediate 2. And then from there, you go further back, harder opponent, you have Drago. And then in the end, your later opponent is Clubber Lang. So the trails are your trainers, your encourager, and then your opponent. And the question asked, they're like, wait a second, so why isn't there a trail named Rocky? And the truth is, when you ride Barfield, you are Rocky. These are your trainers, this is your encouragement, and these are your opponents.
Very cool.
And it was Ryan Maloney who came up with that. It's interesting. I've ridden it so many times with so many different people, and we kind of started figuring it out. But it was like 3 years of riding with different generations of people that kind of collectively figured out what was happening. And then when I ran into Ryan, he was just tickled pink that we figured it out. It was like his little secret. But I think it's probably one of the most brilliantly named trail systems. I don't know about anywhere, but it's a pretty brilliant naming convention.
I think Drago is by far my favorite out of that list.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Naming wise or trail wise?
Advanced 2 will always have will always have a special place in my heart.
Advanced 2 is Clubber.
Clever.
Yes.
Okay.
And but naming wise, and I gotta say trail wise, Drago is up there.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to. It's been, in fact, the last time I was at Barfield was with you, Bonham. The day that we went out there and rode. And that was before I hurt my wrist, which was in 2001.
Yeah.
So it probably was in fall of 2001, summer of 2001.
Yeah.
Not 2001, 21. So builders, by the way, name things as they build things, and a lot of times the names don't stick for anybody but the builder. Do you remember the Yankee Biscuit?
Yes.
What was that? That's on Drago, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was, because that feature. So you go.
I'm excited.
You
The
go.
Yankee biscuit.
You
I know.
go-
I'm writing this one down.
You've got the best way to figure this one out is you've got that sort of ramp up an edge of a rock shelf where you then go up and you make a right hand turn, and you've got this drop off next to you. And the Yankee biscuit, next time you look at the approach to that, so you go up through this little notch and then come back down. When you come back down, there's this huge rock that's leaned up against that shelf before you get to the approach to that little climb in that loop. And that rock is the Yankee biscuit. It does kind of look like a biscuit, but we called it the Yankee biscuit because it was very difficult. We had to put that rock there because it was in the way. We had to move it out of the bottom of that notch to make it rideable.
What's a Yankee biscuit?
It's not a fluffy Southern biscuit. It's a tougher, crunchier. A Yankee biscuit is a very different thing from a Southern biscuit. So, and that's why it's a Yankee biscuit. That name also, by the way, compliments of James Flatten, who is a fantastic trail builder. He and several other builders from Colorado came during the downtime to kind of lend a little bit of extra crew to get the job done. He's the one who called that the Yankee biscuit first.
Yeah.
And we had every come along, every chain, every strap, everything hooked to that rock to get it moved and to get it to stand up and get out of the way. And every time when we tried, 5 or 6 times to get it to move, and it kept on falling back into place.
Really?
We lost that one 4 or 5 times, and we finally got it to stay put. That was tough.
Yeah.
That was hard work. That was a whole lot of wheel spinning.
Wow. And this is the one that, like you said, it goes up on an incline and then makes a hard right at the top. And then you're kind of up elevated, and it drops back into the cave.
Yes.
Okay. So that's probably one of the coolest features, is dropping back into that cave. How did you see that, and what were you like? Was the notch just perfectly to where you were like, okay, we can fit our 750 mil bars, assuming that's what they were at the time. Now they're 820 mil bars, and it's hard to get them through there.
Well. So that you're talking about, that's actually what we refer to as Zach's Eye.
Zach's Eye.
Where you're up on top of that ridge. Now that's at the very top of that's on 2. That's on Advanced 2.
That's on Clubber.
That's
Clubber,
at the
yeah.
very top of Clubber, yeah, where you've gone out and you make that last turn and you get up on that rock ridge. What I'm talking about is the one where you ride up kind of a shelf on the side of a rock ledge, and you make a right hand turn at the top of it, and you've got that fallout. Where on Clubber you're kind of riding up on ground. I mean, it's not just a drop off. This is a drop off.
I'll look for it. I'll look for it.
It's and right after this one, see, I think you get up on that and you go across. Right after this one is the option line that takes you down into the sinkhole where you've got the rock balance beam, and then getting back up out of it is the tough part of that one, really.
Yeah.
That's right after this, I think.
And that's Zach's Eye?
No, Zach's Eye is the one that you're talking about, where you drop down into, it feels like you're in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And you've got all of these little, big rocks around you, and then smaller rocks next to you and stuff too. But you drop right through a little notch that you're talking about. You can barely get your handlebars through.
Yeah, there's
Vulture's Den.
there's
Vulture's Den, okay.
I've heard it called Vulture's Den, Rattlesnake Den, all kinds of things.
We called that Zach's Eye because the ramp through that notch, we had to take some large rocks and hook them up with the come along and kind of lower them down into it. And as Zach was lowering one of those rocks down into it, his hand slipped off the handle on the come along as he was releasing cable, and the handle popped up and it hit him right above his eye, and it gave him a black eye, and it split his eye open. He had to get stitches above his eye, and normally not a big deal. I mean, stitches are stitches, but this was like a week and a half before Zach's wedding.
It got its name like Whitewater Rapids get their names.
Yeah.
Something bad happened.
Yeah. So there was bloodshed building this trail.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of bloodshed, but fortunately, when I say no major injuries, I mean, like I said, when you're picking up rocks the size of some of the stuff that we moved out there, and you've got to get a strap underneath of it. I talked about trusting everyone.
Yeah.
If you're holding a rock up with a rock bar, and you're like, okay, I've got it, it's stable. What you're waiting to feel something move, something strange, something slip, and you can't get these straps underneath it without getting a hand underneath it somewhere. And what you have to tell someone is, look, if I say no, like that's the word no, if I say no, you don't, there is no I've almost got it. Get your hand out from under it, get out from under it. Because whether the rock falls now after that or not, I felt something I didn't like. And you have to respect that the person with their hand under the rock has to trust you to tell them if something's going bad. And I don't want to be the guy that, I said no and said, oh, I've almost got it. And then the rock falls on them, where if they just pulled their hand out or whatever. So there's a lot of trust involved in that.
Yeah.
When you start doing stuff like that, yeah, you could potentially, someone could get hurt. It's just the way that, there's no moving stuff that heavy without that possibility. And the fact that I thought was probably the worst injury, but we had a lot of just like smashed fingers with, like trying to pick up a rock or trying to set down a rock or whatever. But that was the worst. I don't even think anybody lost any fingernails out there.
No, I will say to that effect too, though. And I don't do this professionally, so you can say otherwise if you disagree on this. But Drew and I met on this trail, and I think to what he was saying is that trust that's required between a bunch of guys with a really good sense of humor. You're out working, manual labor, you're sharing things with each other that you might not share with other people. And then the trust that goes into that, when your arm is up underneath the slab that we made in the ramp that we were discussing earlier, that might weigh 4,000 or 5,000 pounds or more, to get a strap under it. And you trust these guys not to drop it on you. And it's not really like, it gets to the point where it's not a second thought. It's just, you do it. For the guys that obviously do it for a living, if you're going to go out and volunteer with them, if you're capable of following directions and you are halfway skilled at swinging a hammer, I think it's a great way to not just build friendships, but build community, just being in volunteering and helping build the trail and being a part of building this community.
Yeah. And to that note, when we as trail builders, and I'm going to speak for a group, I'm going to take it on myself to say this. We love it when volunteers come out and get involved, and you get the ownership that goes along with that, because it wasn't just Drew. I mean, Jim was out there. Yeah. Everybody knows Jim. Jim's a superstar. He's volunteered on a bunch of projects we've worked on. He does so much trail work around here in Middle Tennessee. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But he came out and he learned, like Drew came out and he learned how to do these things, and to know that when I walk away from this trail, if I'm spend the next 3 years all over the Southeast and don't get a chance to come back to it, that when I come back, that there are people that understand, hey, at some point we may need to bring a couple more rocks over here and hit them with hammers until they're gravel to maintain, the area around a certain ramp up or whatever. The fact that the community got there to help, to learn how to do it, and to feel like they had the knowledge and the ability to jump in and maintain that trail in the condition that we intended to leave it. we don't like anything better than that, because ultimately, this is a community asset, and we want it to be a community asset. And without maintenance, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good a job we do building it. If it's not maintained, it won't continue to be a community asset.
Yeah, right on. I'll talk about maintaining here when we wrap, but let's talk about the volunteering and the paid aspect of this. I don't want people to think that this was 100% volunteer done, because it wasn't, right? I mean, there was a contractor, Barry Smith, who won the contract to come in and do this.
Right.
And where did the funds come for him to be able to do that?
The funding on this one, I think part of it was City of Murfreesboro, and I think some of it was SORBA as well.
Yeah.
So it was funded from both places, and yeah, to be clear, myself, Zach, and the crew that came in from Colorado, they were paid. All of that crew was part of Single Track Trails, Greg Mazzou's lot out in Colorado. And in fact, they had, at least James anyway, was here for the Percy Warner build as well. So Single Track Trails did a significant portion of that. And so there was paid crew there, myself included, and then we had the volunteers like Drew, Jim. I mean, Jim came out there like it was his morning routine. He'd come out there in the morning and basically work until lunch, and then go. He's retired. He can do what he wants to do, but he elected to come out and help us build trail.
That's just cool that you had the paid crew out there alongside the volunteer crew, and you guys made it work together. So,
as volunteers, being able to learn from these guys and everything, that was like Drew was saying with the upkeep, and part of volunteering is learning, hey, this is the mindset or the theory behind what this is supposed to be like, and being able to upkeep that. And then past that, it's just, I don't know, it's a good time.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about maintenance, but the way that SORBA operates, and we discussed this last episode, was our Trail Boss network. So we do have a Trail Boss identified in Barfield today, and his name is Andy Myers. And he does a fantastic job. He's out there multiple times a week, clearing trees as much as, we talk a lot about Cane Ridge, because Cane Ridge is like a forest of toothpicks. If somebody sneezes, 20 trees fall up there. And you guys were out there yesterday cleaning up, weren't you?
The crew was.
And then, Barfield's kind of the same. They had a bunch of blowdowns this week. We talked about the tornado coming up there, but I mean, he's just in tune with keeping that place in check, keeping it rideable, and just we're forever thankful to those people that do that and choose to go out there and do that. And I know right now is the springtime, and this is not just happening in Barfield, but in other locations, starting to get a lot of hikers out. And people have been caged up all winter long, and now they want to start hiking on the mountain bike trails, and it's creating some problems. And I say to the guys, just give it a couple weeks. People get tired of hiking, and they'll go back to their air conditioning. It happens every year. But again, I think the volunteers and it's not so much the trail that needs maintenance up there, because it's all hardscape. It's all rocks. You can't hurt it. It's just cleaning up trees and debris and branches and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the trees, both Cane Ridge and Barfield, the real problem, right? You mentioned all of the blowdowns. It's shallow soil. Both places, it's a shallow layer of soil and a whole lot of rock. So there's not a great deal for some of these trees to get purchase on. And some of the big trees have gotten lucky, and they found, a place where they can get some roots in or whatever. But a lot of the smaller stuff, it blows down pretty easy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't know if there was like some disease in the soil or something that was killing all these trees, but I just can't, we were up there one night riding at Cane, and we had to cross 20 to 25 different blowdowns one night, and it was what's going on with this forest?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the shallow soil, that makes total sense. Nothing to grab onto.
Part of that too is the emerald ash
borers.
Yeah. There is an invasive beetle that is destroying ash trees. It climbs up partway and makes food of it and kills it. So if you look at a tree and there's bark falling off about shoulder height, that thing's going to come down someday. Yeah. And I know the shout out to the Murfreesboro parks. They've been going through Barfield and other areas, clearing those out. So you'll see a lot of trees that have been cut out. So I know there's a lot for land managers in the whole Nashville area to take care of those trees that have been diseased or attacked.
All right, give me the dirt on Barfield. So right now, all the trails are bi-directional, right? So they're meant to be ridden in both ways per the signs. But is there a better way to ride them?
There's always a better way, and the reason there's always a better way is because you'll always have a section that's more fun downhill. For instance, let's talk Clubber Lang, right? You talked about dropping down through Zach's Eye. If you go up through Zach's Eye, that's difficult. But
I've never tried it.
But
Not a single time.
more than that, if you continue from the top of the hill down through that there's like a rowdy technical section with this big bubbly rock. You ride out onto that big rock nose at the bottom, and you've got that, almost straight down drop off of that.
Yeah.
What do you do with that if in the other direction?
Yeah, you have to top rope it and climb it to get up the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So, no, Bonham. So you said top rope it.
Yeah, no, that's climbing, another thing I do. So
Yeah, so Clubber is actually the only trail that is directional.
Yeah.
I've got a friend that rides it frequently. I asked him if it should be bi-directional, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
No, because not only are there a couple features that are I say almost impossible, because I have seen people climb that face. It's 10 foot tall, 30-degree angle. I've rode out where there's some trials guys, and they're like, oh yeah, we can do this. And they bunny hopped up half of it.
Yeah.
So it is possible. But the biggest thing though is, once you get to the top, you've got downward elevation and some massive chunk, and you can get some serious speed. And if you want to go rowdy and you want to test out your full suspension enduro bike, it's an excellent spot. It just gets rowdy, gets fast, and it's an amazing line. It's rowdy and fast.
Yeah, I second that. That's probably one of the best enduro lines in the state. And you can take as much as you want. You can fly through it with some speed and just. It's incredible. You're like,
you don't want somebody coming the other way.
It's like, how is this in Middle Tennessee? How is this in Murfreesboro City Park?
Right.
yeah.
No, it's but yeah, that's that one is the only one that's not bi-directional. But that's my example. Is there's always a section of trail that is like that's going to work better one direction than another. And the question that you have to ask yourself when you get to a certain point is, well, does this section being easier counter, the climb that you had to make to get there? So, for instance, when you come off of the connector, Adrian, back onto Mickey, if you go clockwise and make that little run clockwise back down to the parking lot, believe it or not, that's just a pump track. From the time you come across the hiking trail there, if you understand how to backside pump those rocks through you shouldn't really have to pedal to get back to the parking lot, and it should actually be incredibly fast. You should need more brake than pedal.
Yeah.
Cool. So when you guys were out there, did you encounter any wildlife or dangerous species? Again, there's horror stories out there about rattlesnake dens and all kind of stuff, especially back on Clubber.
So the best wildlife story has to be the buzzards, because of course the buzzards like to get in the crevices back there. We were walking in one morning, and I stepped down and when I was in front of Zach as we were walking into where we were building, and this buzzard takes off right in front of me, and it gave me a good start. I don't think I screamed, but I definitely came off the ground. And so there were some starts back there on account of that. I don't think we saw any snakes.
It's good to know.
I mean, it was one of those things where, of course, we were back there. I think I started in October, and we finished it in March.
Yeah, it's a predominantly wintertime build.
So
6 months.
yeah.
Nothing like freezing hands moving rocks.
No kidding.
You know, I got to say the cold weather might help the rocks break a little easier, though.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Spray a little water on it, let it freeze overnight, explode it.
Yeah, once you got back there moving those rocks, you really didn't notice it was cold outside either.
That's true.
It was
It goes
definitely
back to heart rate.
heart rate, right. Keep warm.
Oh, that's cool. I bring up rattlesnakes because everybody talks about rattlesnakes up there, but I think it's more of a myth.
I've only ever seen a snake one time, and
Yeah.
it was all black.
Yeah,
And it was maybe 1.5 inch diameter. And I was coming off Drago, approaching Clubber Lane, and I was like, okay, I'm going to catch my breath right here and put my foot down. No, I'm not. I'm going to ride another couple feet.
It's one of those things. I'm sure that there are snakes out there, rattlesnakes probably. I mean, it's Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had rattlesnake sightings at Percy Warner.
Yeah.
They like rocks.
And they love rocks. I'm sure there's rattlesnakes out there,
Yeah.
but we didn't see any.
I was out riding at dusk. Probably one of the first times I was out there, and this was years ago. But the rocks started moving, and that's when I realized there were armadillos out there. I don't know if you've seen the armadillos, but there was a bunch that night. That for whatever reason they were active, and it was the weirdest thing because you could barely tell. Again, it was dusk. If it was a rock that was moving or if it was an armadillo, and you're like, "What in the world's going on?" But anyway, you got some cool stickers on your car about Barfield, don't you, Shawn?
I do. So one thing we kept saying, man, I love Barfield, and Michael Shepard and I said, man, we need to make some stickers, and we kind of were working around these ideas. We're like, we're gonna use the love, like the sign language symbol, your hand, your thumb, and then the two fingers for love. And we kind of mocked that up a little bit, and I love Barfield. And then we're like, wait a second, Barfield rocks.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, drop the thumb, go for the devil dog, the two horns, that means rock. And we came up with a sticker that is I rock Barfield. And that's the hashtag. I try to use it anytime I post on social media. And so I rock Barfield is a big hashtag we use. Another one is body Barfield.
Body by Barfield.
And that's
Love it.
I love
Accurate.
Vinny, my neighbor,
Are you the
moves in from New
spokesperson
York.
for that?
No, Vinny is. No, Vinny comes in from New York, and craziest thing, he guy rolls in next door, moves in next door, and he's like, "Hey, do you know anything about mountain biking?" I'm like, "Yeah." Have you heard of a place called Barfield? I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You've ridden there?" I'm like, "I ride there all the time." He's like, "You're kidding me?" Except he's from New York. He said something else. So we quickly became friends, and he loves Barfield. Coming from New York, he's like, yeah, all this other stuff around here. He's like, just not interested. But he loves riding Barfield, and we've done a bunch of group rides out there. He's helped me and several others coaching us on how to get through some of this technical stuff. We call it a gentleman's ride, where we're not leaving anybody behind. If somebody wants to session something, we're going to get off our bikes. We're going to stand there. We're going to catch them when they fall, and coach them on. And it just makes for just an awesome camaraderie and environment. And that's where the kind of the body by Barfield comes in. So
No, that's good. We've done I guess it was last fall, we did a group ride, SORBA group ride out there. And we had probably 20, 25 people in a line, and we went straight back to Clubber and got everybody back there to experience it and to see their faces, and what they were experiencing was really cool. And I know there's a lot more mountain bikers in Nashville that have not driven down here to experience it, but I really encourage people to, one, just to appreciate the work that went into something like that, and three, you're gonna be better. You're gonna be a better biker when you walk away from trail.
Yeah. And here's, you mentioned something that in fishing we would call this the juice. This is the insider information you need to know to have a good time. When you ride Barfield, if you think you're up for an advanced trail, go all the way back to Clubber, skip all of the beginner stuff, go all the way back to Clubber, and ride Clubber and come out and then, ride the other advance and then ride the two intermediate trails in any order you want to ride them in, and then do the beginner trails last, because it requires a lot of energy. And if you start out with the beginner and you ride your way back, you're going to be completely tapped by the time you get back to Clubber, and it's not going to be any fun. And what you want to do is you want to move that exhaustion to where you're more tired when you get to the easy trails. So there's the juice for Barfield right there.
No, that's
Agree
super
with
good.
that. And if you're worried about a warm up, Yo Adrian is plenty. Even that has got some technical on it.
We put
Gosh,
the
I
squirrel
think-
catcher in going back. It probably took us a couple of hours to build that squirrel catcher, because we had to get that rock where it was actually rideable. But what we wanted was, actually, we used Zach for our guinea pig for that. We wanted Zach to be able to clean it, but not easily. And so, like, just to give people the idea, like, hey, this is actually going to be tough. You're going to have to work at this.
Yeah, Zach's a great rider
Yeah.
too. Zach Gaston is a fantastic rider. So for him to struggle, it's hard.
Yeah, right on. Well, listen, guys, let's go around the horn. Give me your final thoughts on Barfield, and I'll start with you, Drew Bonham. And I know we've mentioned a lot of names here, but if there's anybody else we haven't mentioned that we need to give kudos to, throw it out there. I know it wasn't just a small group of people that made this thing happen. So
I'll leave that to Drew. My final thoughts on Barfield, especially for those in Nashville, it's 1,000% worth the traffic on 24 to come experience it. Come with an open mind, not expecting anything else like you see in Nashville. Come with an appetite afterwards, because you're going to work it up with the energy you're going to use riding it, and just enjoy it.
right on, Shawn.
The only name I hadn't heard mentioned yet is Nathan from Murfreesboro Parks and Rec, who from the city side helped make this happen. So we're appreciative of that. Jim was mentioned. It's Jim Horncamp, or Old Man Jim. It gets called a lot. I just checked, and he's got a solid 80 hours in this year already. We're only a couple months into the year, and he's already got 80 hours logged.
Volunteer hours, yeah.
Of building a new trail. And oddly enough, it's the technical section at Horncamp. I'm sorry, at
Horton.
Horton. It's Horncamp doing the work. Yeah, much appreciation to those that help out, even those unnamed people that, kick a stick or move a limb. It all helps out. As far as pace, yeah, if you're going for all of it, start at the back, work your way forward. Otherwise, if you're going into it, don't rush yourself. If you look at a section, you're like, oh, I can go fast through here. No, don't bother. Just keep a steady pace. Save your energy, because there will be a rock feature where you're going to have to pedal down, lift and move your body, manipulate, get yourself up over that rock. And then use the next couple pedal strokes to kind of just even out your heart rate. But it's an amazing feat, and so encouraging when you do start clearing features.
And it's all rideable. Every bit of it's
It is.
rideable.
It is. Yeah. There's absolutely sections where I was talking to other people. I'm like, okay, we need to do something here, because this is not possible. And they're like, no, it is.
Yeah.
And it's you don't get it every time. And that's one thing. You're like, okay, I'll give myself 2 or 3 times to clear something, and then I'm like, okay, just not today, move on, But then there's going to be days where you're just hitting on all 8, and I just, I got like my second fastest time on intermediate 2 just last week after riding it 5 days in a row, and I'm like, what the heck? It was a good time hitting on all 8, and it's so encouraging to it's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's not just a check mark. It's an accomplishment.
the parade. You expect a parade. In the
Oh, you
parking lot
do.
when you're done.
Say, it's an accomplishment every single time you do it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not even just the first time. It's every time you do it.
Yeah.
So names, of course, Barry Smith for taking my word that this was going to be an awesome project. And then Zach Gaston, definitely my right hand on the project. I don't think I could have gotten this done without him. The crew that came out from Colorado was James, Stacy, Shawn, and Leo. Great crew. We had a fantastic time with them. Then, gosh, let's see. Stu Drake came down and helped for a while when we were in a pinch for some labor. Of course, Jim Horenkamp, Drew Bonham. There was a day that we had several local volunteers out breaking rocks, and it's been long enough that it was like one day that these guys came out, and I can't remember who all it was, but they came out and broke a bunch of rocks for us back on some of the advanced trails. And even though I can't remember them, huge shout out to them, because at that point we'd been breaking rocks for so long. We were ready to start using our heads on those rocks. It was rough, and they really came out there and got a whole lot done for us in a very short period of time. This trail, I mean, I do this for a living. I build trail for a living. And I have to say, this is probably still, this is easily my favorite trail. I was going to say top 3, but it's easily my favorite trail just because, it's so completely unique. I've been all over the Southeast building trail. We've got, one of my other favorite trails, we had the opportunity to build a mountain bike trail on a Civil War battlefield, and it's amazing. And it has a view that just won't quit. But in terms of just an outright unique trail, everybody talks about a rock garden somewhere. Barfield is 8 miles of trail. It's 5.5 miles of rock garden. Y'all come get some.
Right on, right on. Well, I second everything you guys have said. Barfield is a gem amongst the mid-state community, and I appreciate all the work that you guys had put into that to allow it to happen and for it to be a thing. And when you do go out there, don't be frustrated with it. Come back a second and a third time, and you will enjoy it more and more and more, and you're going to get better as a rider. And again, I think it's just a testament to the hard work that volunteers and the community as well. Murfreesboro didn't have to do this; they didn't have to put down a ton of money to build a mountain bike trail. So the partnership there is outstanding, and you get somebody that's supportive of mountain biking in the political spectrum that can pull the levers to allow this to happen, and it truly does make a big deal. So just thanks to all those guys and for all the folks that you guys listed. So. So Drew, thank you guys so much. Shawn, we'll talk next time. All right. See you on the trails. Bye.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Nashville Mountain Bike Podcast, powered by SORBA Mid-TN. To learn more, visit sorbamidtn.org and follow us on the socials for the most up-to-date information. As always, like, follow, share, and give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed listening today. Thanks for being a part. See you on the trails.